Hello, welcome to Lazada Insider, featuring knowledge that makes a difference. We share trusted insights, forward-looking perspectives, and exclusive expert interviews to keep you ahead of the curve.
One topic that have been pushed to the forefront of consumer minds during this pandemic is sustainability. Studies have shown that consumers are willing to be part of the solution and start their sustainability journey. Yet, when asked what they have done, most have not acted on this intention. Today, we have Anvaya, a qualitative director from Ipsos, to help us understand the say-do gap in sustainability. Anvaya have over 20 years of experience in understanding consumers' behavior and mindsets to help brands unlock opportunities that are relevant to the Southeast Asian consumers. So firstly, thank you for coming down to Lazada One to share your insights on the topic of closing the say-do gap in sustainability.
Thanks so much, Shaz, for having me here at Lazada Insider. My name is Anvaya and I'm a director with the qualitative team in Ipsos in Singapore. And I have over 20 years of experience in market research and a deeply curious mind in terms of consumer behavior, their mindset, and how to help brands stay more relevant in their strategies. And you very rightly have pointed out that sustainability is at the forefront of any brand strategies, and we see that consumers are also embracing the same.
Yep. So what we have seen is that many research have shown that even among the Southeast Asia consumers, there is a growing awareness and readiness for sustainable products, and also to be part of the sustainable journey. And as you have rightly said, that it has accelerated, especially during the pandemic. However, research also shows that there is a gap between their attitudes with their actual retail behavior. So could you share your thoughts about this?
Sure. So definitely we see that in our global Ipsos survey that we've done, we see that over 70% people say that they are more conscious about the environment now than say they were during the pre-pandemic days, right? Because we know that the pandemic is not just a year old, it's been over for 2 years now and still ongoing. So we see that people do have the intention of doing something for the environment, of playing their part towards climate change, towards more sustainable actions that are there, and they are quite conscious of the topic of sustainability. However, they are not always acting upon their intentions, and therefore we see there is a intention-action gap, there is a say versus do gap. It's also been called the green gap by many people these days. So even in our survey, we found out that 43% people say it is important for them to use packaging that has minimum amount of packaging materials, but only 29% people actually make the conscious decision to purchase products which have that minimum amount of packaging. Or we know from our survey again that 41% people think that packaging should be made of recyclable materials, but it is only 26% people who've actually purchased products which have that type of packaging. So we can ask ourselves, why does this dilemma exist? Why are they saying something, claiming something, but really not having that follow through? Some of it is very common behavior for all of us. Like many of us will say we want to lose weight, but we end up gorging on midnight snacks. We say we want to be more mindful, that's the buzzword in the pandemic as well, but we end up doing a lot of multitasking and getting distracted. Or we say we want to take 10,000 steps in a day, but we really haven't left the office chair. Yeah. So it is not that, we don't want to do things, but it is that we lack the enabling actions that are necessary to facilitate this change and close the gap between say versus do. So using like our Ipsos Maps framework that we already have, we see that there are several barriers at play when it comes to why people don't embark and do action around sustainability. First of all is the barrier about what they believe is sustainability. And that's where the roles of brand will come in, which is to really educate them, right? So what are the dimensions of sustainability? The other barrier is also to do with what is the external environment really doing? Is it enabling their actions? Because me as a consumer might want to take some action, but I may not have the ways and means and the avenues to do that. So for example, a consumer goes to a wet market or a supermarket and there is free and easy availability of plastic bags, right? It's not going to nudge them to remember to carry a cloth bag before they step out of the house. So the external environment is making it very easy for them. There are no barriers at play, right? Or if a consumer is ordering something from an e-commerce channel, then do they even have the option of choosing packaging that is minimal, right? So while consumers are claiming, I think there is the role of the brand as well to facilitate action that can bridge the say versus do gap.
Thank you. That is very interesting and very insightful. It has made me reflect, like as a consumer myself, what should I do or what should I do more, in order to make sure I act on this intent or to close this gap, say-do gap in sustainability. Also, I think it would be interesting to hear also, based on your experience, are there any interesting nuances observed between different categories on the say-do gap in sustainability, or what you have just termed it as green sustainability?
Yeah. So one of the interesting anecdotes that we see for Southeast Asian consumers, now we know that when we come to categories, there are certain categories which are at the forefront of sustainability. We see a lot of the home care brands or skincare brands that have made changes to their packaging. When it comes to consumers, a lot of times what we've observed is that just carrying the thing about the supermarket and the wet market, right? Because that's where a lot of people are purchasing stuff. People think that by taking cloth bags to wet markets or supermarkets for their grocery purchases, they are playing a significant part in the environment. But many of them, and that's true for many of us as well, we will drive there to the supermarket or the wet market versus taking public transport, which will help to reduce our carbon footprint. When we've done shopper studies, we have figured out that yes, people will say, oh, I'm looking for a sustainable packaging option, but they end up purchasing not refill packs but larger SKUs and bottles, specifically of, let's say, laundry detergent or cleaning detergents and all, because that is value for money. Yeah. When we've asked consumers, they've said across categories, they expect brands to take charge and shift how they're sourcing ingredients, shift their manufacturing processes, shift their distribution processes towards sustainable products. But they don't want to bear the burden of that additional cost. So the consumer still wants to pay exactly the same thing, but wants the brand to play their part. So consumers may claim that they want brands to be more sustainable, but when they are purchasing certain things, and specifically things which are purchased more often, categories which are purchased more often are part of the regular purchases, they are purchasing based on their wallets and not based on their value and belief systems around sustainability. Another observation, and we've seen that specifically with regards to, let's say, beauty and skincare brands. People want to have natural ingredients, and people support brands which are natural, which have natural ingredients. However, they lack the knowledge that whether this natural ingredient is part of a renewable ingredient, part of a renewable ecosystem or not. Because they feel that by supporting natural, they're again, playing their part, but they actually may be taking away from the environment far more than the environment is able to recreate and reproduce these ingredients, right? Again, we talk about Southeast Asia, and we know that the countries in Southeast Asia, it's really a cluster, right? So the countries have a value system that binds them together, But with regards to socio-economic, with regards to infrastructure and government policies, some of these countries are quite different. Some countries in Southeast Asia, we see that people are more conscious about sustainability because they've really seen that the impact of their choices and the way that it's impacted the environment. It could be with regards to litter, waste disposals and flooding of the streets. It could be with regards to frequent climate changes, so typhoons that are coming in, or rising water levels which are impacting them, their community, whether it be fishing community, for example. So that could be one of the aspects that's there. And these people might be taking more action so that it stops becoming real. They are playing their part in pushing these kind of things away. And then there are some countries in Southeast Asia where people acknowledge that there is a problem, but it has not become real for them because it's not come to their homes yet, at the doorsteps of their houses. So for these countries, the latter countries, people might have a gap, more of a gap of this intention kind of action that's there. And if you think about it, it may not be the fault of consumers, because we might be, as brands and manufacturers, very quick to blame them, like, oh, you need to do this, why aren't you doing that? It would be that it is the role of the brands and the manufacturers to really shape the consumer's belief into about sustainability, to give them the knowledge that is required for what is sustainability, what are the dimensions, what has a short-term perspective and therefore requires immediate action, versus a longer-term perspective that you can take certain steps towards and you'll reach the longer-term goal, which consumers, that's not visible to them that much. And I think with regards to categories, we have examples where from children's toys to furniture brands, categories and brands are making this kind of differences. If you think about beverage brands, they have done away with the plastic straws that is there. But again, I think brands need to take that charge of knowledge and imparting knowledge for the consumers, so that all consumers are then playing an equal part in this journey of sustainability.
I see. As in, basically, like what you're saying, actually, there is an opportunity for brands to take the lead in order to educate the consumers in order to close the gap in sustainability. But we do see, as like you have also mentioned, that there are encouraging trends where brands actually step up in terms of incorporating sustainability into their business operations, and also to drive sustainable behavior change among consumers. So what would be your advice for brands or sellers that are just starting or like are in the midst of wanting to drive sustainable behavior change among their consumer and also incorporating it into their business operations?
Yeah. So one major pitfall that brands need to avoid, and greenwashing, I think brands know what is the term and not to do, because consumers can see through you, and there is enough and more that is being said by a lot of these change agents and leaders. One major pitfall is that as consumers gain more knowledge about sustainability, they are going to look beyond just, this reduction of plastic or elimination of plastic. They are going to look towards the end-to-end customer experience, right? So be it looking towards manufacturing process, about the carbon footprint that this manufacturing process is leaving, or where is it being sourced, the ingredients, other aspects of sustainability when it comes to distribution as well, and the carbon footprint over there. And they would want to make choices based on that. Yeah. We are also now, a lot of consumers are talking about environmental sustainability, but there is also these other social sustainability aspects, which are like around free trade, inclusion, and that kind of. So brands now need to make sure that whatever actions that they are taking in bringing their brand and their product to the consumer is really geared for this end-to-end kind of customer experience. Yeah? So let me give an example. as a consumer, if I purchase, let's say, a skincare brand, and I purchase that because I know they're using natural ingredients and they're using renewable ingredients that are there, and they've done away with plastic packaging. They have, really invested a lot in their manufacturing processes and their plants, and taken charge of it being converted to carton packaging. Yeah, but we know that now if the package is getting delivered via an e-commerce channel, right, and we know that in Southeast Asia, e-commerce, yes, thanks to the pandemic, to the circuit breakers and the lockdowns, people were not able to go, but it's really accelerated, and it has changed behaviors of consumers in several categories, where it's going to stay the course for the years to come, right? So that kind of package is likely to get delivered via e-commerce channel more, and then when the consumer opens it, they might find that this has a lot of plastic, it has a lot of wooden cartons and everything, it has a lot of bubble wrap, which I'm sure many of us like to burst when we are very anxious, but it leads to the trash and the plastic footprint that's there. Now, this is the first moment that the consumer who's purchased this brand and this product is interacting with what they have purchased, and it is the first moment of truth and the consumer interaction. So when they look at how it gets delivered, they may not feel that it is about a brand that's immersing fully into this initiative of sustainability. Yeah. They may start to think that brand partnerships with the e-commerce channel are not fully developed, not fully, actioned when again it comes to sustainability, right? Because they might be looking at it in terms of being end to end, but what gets delivered is not part of what they think is sustainable. Yeah? Second pitfall is just to do the bare minimum. Right, so we've talked about beverage companies eliminating straws that are there, right? Doing away with a lot of plastic in terms of packaging for maybe shampoo brands or skincare kind of brands. But sustainability is a journey, and your consumer is there with you in this journey. So the brand actions must not stop here only in terms of plastic. By doing what now has become the minimum, I think all consumers expect that you're doing something to eliminate plastic. Brands are just jumping onto that bandwagon, but they are not really steering it. They are not really leading it. Yeah? So when we look at it from a lens of sustainability, any brand that is doing the bare minimum, their differentiation will be under threat, because what is it that they're doing differently than any other brands? Yeah? So it is important for brands to really be ahead of the sustainability journey, to not just take the position that the brand is just doing and delivering what the consumer now thinks of sustainability, but really educating consumers, shaping their belief, and taking charge of the entire thought leadership towards sustainability. The other aspect that brands, I think, are aware about are the new consumer segment, which is the Gen Z, which now has entered into the workforce. They have the purchasing power, and there are enough and more studies that are being done that they are the ones who are going to make choices based on their values and may perhaps sacrifice their wallets for these values. So the brands need to ask themselves that, do we have enough information on the Gen Z mindset, on the actions that they have, or do we need to take our brand purpose towards sustainability, and make it more relevant to them, take charge of the entire thought leadership around it?
I see. Thanks. So I think for the last question, majority of our listeners are players in the e-commerce space. What would you say the three biggest possible action you believe that the brand or the seller in the e-commerce space especially could do to help drive or support this sustainable behavior change?
Yeah, so I think that's a very important question, because we've already established that e-commerce is going to be the trend in terms of shopping. And brands and e-commerce players need to have a very strong partnership that delivers together on the sustainability aspect. You asked me about 3 possible actions, so I'm not going to talk about plastic because I think I've talked about it, a lot here. I think the first thing is to do with sustainable shipping, because delivery and the carbon footprint that is happening in terms of the delivery slots is very important. So you need to look at lesser CO2 emissions during delivery slots, and here is where bundling will become quite important. And it is definitely in the interest of brands and e-commerce players to figure out what are the adjacencies that are there when a consumer shops online. Because then by looking at what are the brands that are purchased together, what are the categories that are purchased together, that is where, as a brand with knowledge about adjacencies, knowledge about their purchase behavior, will be in a better position to offer bundle offers within the same kind of delivery occasion. Yeah. The second part to sustainable shipping is really about returns. Yeah. And because returns are so easy, right? A lot of us, will purchase something. We may not want to go through a lot of hassle that returns have, but because they're easy, we will still go in for it. So yes, if I order for a shirt and it doesn't fit me, of course I will return it. However, a lot of consumers in our experience return things because they are not aware of exactly what it looks like. Yeah. Exactly, what it will do in terms of the form and feature, because they're looking for reviews. Now, certain categories do very well, beauty and skincare category is a very good example. They have so many reviews and so many blogs that you know what you would be getting into. But let's say electronics, for example. I wanted to purchase a gooseneck and there was no review, so it just came and all it came was a stand. Then I have to engage the e-commerce player to return it because there is no review, there is no actual picture, and that again will add to the packaging aspect of it because I may have thrown it in the trash, whatever came with it, and it will definitely add to the CO2 and the carbon footprint. So reviews are important not just from a repeat purchase perspective, but really to co-opt the consumer into leaving reviews so that they're doing their part for sustainable shipping. Yeah. Second action is really to update the brand ethos. So sustainability will be about supporting causes like local farming communities, and in our Southeast Asia we know that we have many countries which are, local farming communities are very important to them. So CSR initiatives that are done to onboard local farming communities, that would be important. What would also be important is the local sellers, right? Because in markets, let's say Indonesia, there are a lot of local sellers that are there. There are a lot of artisans. So e-commerce players and brands can partner with them to support them also in their journey around sustainability. So for local sellers, it could be workshops about the best sustainability practices. It could be about the 3 best principles with regard to packaging, right? Because the manufacturing is likely to be more sustainable as such. So you can partner with them, and that would help a lot in terms of the brand purpose. And again, partnering and making sure that brands on e-commerce channels which are really leading their charge on sustainability get an even platform versus the MNCs and the global brands. Because we know that, let's say there are fashion brands in Malaysia that I've heard who are manufacturing clothes with ocean waste, right? So are we making sure that they are receiving a lot of, visibility, and are we giving them that kind of platform that they can talk about? Yeah? And the third action is about reuse and recycle. So e-commerce channels and brands and their partnerships can really support the circular economy. There could be perhaps, I don't know, I'm just throwing that in, it could be about channels or live streams that are for reusing and recycling pre-loved products. Children's toys use a lot of plastic, and there is a leading toy brand which in Europe has actually taken that green initiative to teach kids how to repurpose some of the toy parts to craft something new. So that could be done. fast fashion, I know that fast fashion gets blamed for the pressure it puts on air, on water and land pollution. But there are again brands which are looking to return the pre-loved products that can then be crafted into newer kind of clothes. Books and stationery definitely are a given. So these are the categories that you don't need to think twice. Furniture, again, there is a leading furniture multinational company which is again doing its part by looking at pre-loved and pre-used kind of items. It's not just about returning so that that company or that brand can make a fast buck on you, but really because they are the experts that will guide the consumers into repurposing these things, so that again you're reducing pressure from the environment and you're playing your part in supporting the circular economy. And I guess for e-commerce channels and players, again, that's a good way of making different sub-channels and live streams around that. And with the reuse and recycle, I think it's really about rewarding consumers. I know that a lot of times we think that no, consumers need to do their part. Why do they need to be, given some kind of incentive? But we've talked about that there is a say versus do gap, and one of the enabling actions would be to look at rewarding and incentivizing consumers who would be on e-commerce channel or with brand partnerships, could be looking to choose different pack options which are sustainable, SKUs which are sustainable, or really about sustainable brands as well. And so you can look at rewarding them. So these are the three actions that could be there for brands and e-commerce players who will partner and have those brand partnerships.
Thank you so much, Anvaya. Definitely have learned a lot from you. It has been very insightful and enriching session. We do greatly appreciate your time, and thank you once again for sharing your insight and expertise on the say to gap in sustainability.
Thanks so much, Charles, for having me here, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you.
This is Lazada Insider. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you click follow and subscribe so you don't miss our latest insights and expert interviews. Thanks again for joining us. Until next time, take care.